this. The session is being recorded. Please be mindful and respectful of the class environment and your fellow students. Anything you say, type, draw will forever be recorded with your name attached to it. So please keep this top of mind and conduct yourself in a professional manner at all times. Okay, so nothing more to teach in this course. What I wanted to do today is just make it like a work period. So if anybody has any last minute questions for any of the requirements that are due today before midnight, now's your chance to kind of ask questions. There's quite a few students here. I did make the audio available, so if you want to ask a question, instead of typing it in the chat, so you can do that. And I'll do my best to answer the question by demonstrating either a CAD technique or a drafting technique or requirement, and then even I have my spreadsheet open if we want to look at the specific cost estimate item. So if you've done the assignment and you've handed it in, there's nothing new today. So this is basically just a work period. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, now's the time. Right? Any last minute questions before your submission? I know it's due tonight. Okay, if you're not speaking, just please remain muted, but you are able to unmute your mic if you wish. Sorry about that. So for the quantities on the Excel sheet, anything that is an area or a length or a distance, you can just use the value right out of AutoCAD. If you want to round it to the nearest whole number, you can. That's not a problem. The counted values, right? The number of catch basins and so on, has to be whole numbers, right? So if it's a count, it's a whole number. If it's an area or a length or a volume, you can use the entire value, right? I'm not going to be picky about format, right? And then just do the math and give me a cost, right? So if it's supposed to be in a 4,267.256 square meters, you can use that numbers directly, or you can round it, whole numbers only. It's up to you. It won't be that sensitive if you use a whole number or decimal values. All right, Ryan. Any other questions? Sorry, Sumitra, I guess I was on mute when I answered your question. That tin banding information was for my highway students. I sent it to this group in error. They were trying to get their 3D view and it was not in color. So I had to send an email. So I should have sent a follow-up email to Ignore. Can you clarify again how many road CBs we may have in this project? No, I'm not going to tell you how many. I'm going to tell you how to lay them out so you can count them. Right? There's one at each low point, and then between the high point and the low point, if you take the total length, divide by the spacing, 90-meter maximum, you can count how many you have. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you the count. You're going to tell me. I want to know the cost estimate. So if you lay them out properly, you should have a count consistent with most everybody. Okay, some people are putting in double catch basins at the low point based on one of the standards, which is fine. For instance, let me share my screen. Whoops, my screen, sorry. So if we go to AutoCAD, I'll show you here. So if I go to here,
yeah, let me ask for $10,000 more. Yeah, let me push it.
So if you zoom in here, right, some people, because there's a standard, I forget the number. There's water coming from the high point in this direction and from the high point in this direction. So this is actually receiving water from both sides quite a bit. So some people actually put in a double catch basin, right, where the middle is right on the low point, like that. So you could put a double there because of the area that's coming on this side and this side. Here, there's a low point, but remember what's happening, right? This road is falling and coming into here, and this road is falling and coming into here. So this one may want to be a double catch basin. As opposed to this one, the flow is coming here, being picked up, and then is continuing. May not need a catch basin here at all, right? But it is the low point, so we always put one. We always try and capture the water before it goes across the pedestrian walkway. So these are both low points on the profile, but they may not be a low point on the curb and gutter, right? So if this elevation, actually we can check it if you want. I'm going to put an elevation here. Watch. I'm just going to copy. I'll copy one of these. I think this is. And again, you don't want to disturb your. You don't want to disturb your finished ground. So if I put a point here at the gutter, midpoint, and if I put a point here at the gutter, and if I get the elevation of these 2 points from the corridor surface, which is the road surface, say okay. You can see from 44, it's going up to 63, right? So this water is coming around this way, sorry, right? And then there's water coming from here down this way as well. So this might be a double catch basin because there might be a lot of water coming from both sides. On this side, let me get rid of some of these sewers. It's hard to see. Just going to turn off these labels and some of the sewers here. And this layer here, sorry. So if I make a copy of this point from the node to the end point to this end point here, and I get the elevation from the roads. So I had it backwards, I think. Yeah. So you can see actually this comes from here, it comes down this way. And then from here, we know it's falling this way. So water is coming from here toward both of these catch basins. And from this road, water is also falling this way and this way. So because we're receiving water, again, from both sides, then we may consider putting in double catch basins here and here, okay, based on the standard. Okay, so if you read the standard, it tells you where you might have to put in a double catch basin. I forget, somebody showed me, I forget the number, but if somebody wants to look it up, we can read it together. Where you need double catch basins. If you have a double catch basin, as far as cost is concerned, I would just double the cost of a single, right? So I don't have it's generally a little bit cheaper, but I would just say, okay, this is the same cost as 4 catch basins. Okay, same thing here, watch. This is one of the discussions we haven't had, and again, I don't have time to teach everything, but let's take a look here, and here, and here. So if we look at these 4 elevations, elevations from surface. These are come from the corridor model. You'll see water falls from here to here, right? All the way along the road to here, and then from here coming down. So this is receiving water from long stretches from both sides. This one you'll see 49 and 55. It's only getting water from here across to here. That's it. This little short distance, and then a whole bunch coming from this side. So if you wanted to make an argument for whether you need a double catch basin, I would maybe make this one a double catch basin, but not this one. Okay, so it depends on how the water is flowing, right? There's just a little bit coming this way. This is like a high point on the gutter. It's falling here and it's falling away this way. So that's a high point on the gutter, but it's not a high point on the road. It's just the way the geometry works out on the gutter lines. Because this is falling down, right? Remember the edge of this is higher than this. So it turns out that this is higher than this when you come around. So the gutter wants to come around here, flow to here. The gutter wants to come from here down and from here down. So there's an argument for you don't really need a double catch basin from here because there's not a lot of water coming from here. Again, in some standards, they would insist there's water flowing across here. You want to capture it before it crosses. So on this side, this is a high point, so it's not a lot of water. But on this side, there's a lot of water coming from this side all the way around. So there's a significant flow coming around the corner. So some municipalities say, you know what, you need a catch basin here to intercept some of the flow before it comes across where pedestrians are going to be crossing. So this is not because it's a low point. It's because it's before a sidewalk. Okay, I don't think they have that requirement in Milton, but that's something you might want to read about as well. Different municipalities have different standards. Okay, if you want to put in the doubles for the cost, you can, but I'm not going to insist on it because it's not something we really talked about. Okay, any other questions? When changing the sand lateral connection pipes in lot 5 and 6, are they allowed to be connected into the manhole? No, so 5 and 6 here, no, I wouldn't do that. Let me just turn mine on again. Sorry. You don't want to put your you don't want to connect a, so these are my service connections. You don't want to go directly into the manhole. The only thing that goes into the manhole is the main line sewer, the actual sewer pipe, not the connection. Yeah, you could put in a legend, but I would only put in a legend for the items that you have, right? So if you look at Ledger Way, and I think that's one of the requirements. So if you read the requirements, let's just look at it. Hang on a second, the computer's a little bit upset. So if you look at requirements for the final submission, you'll see, where is it here? Oh. Desktop might be on my desktop. I haven't got it here. Hang on, I have to download it. Let me download it. So the submission for the final submission requirements are, so if you look at these final submission requirements, it wants you to have a title block, a north arrow, date. Okay, so that's all the title block information. Title block. You know, it doesn't say to put in a legend, but I would put in a legend at least for the items that we're designing, right? So you should have some representation, and very little, like, you know, something that represents sand, storm, and water in the servicing plan profile for Street A, and then something in the grading plan for the minimum stuff you're showing there. So generally, let's look at Chuchmak and then the grading plan. So if we look at Chuchmak close, right, there's a lot of stuff in this legend. I'll just make sure you can see. Can you see the drawing, Gemma? Sorry, Caitlin? Okay, so if you look at this legend, right, you might want to put in, you know, an example of a storm, a sanitary maintenance hole. Okay, that's it. One storm, one sanitary. Difference between a double and a single for sanitary, a water service connection, a hydrant and a curb, a hydrant and a valve box. The curb stop is, I don't need any of that. This stuff we're not doing. A valve chamber, it's labeled in the plan view. Usually if there's a label in the plan view, like if you look here, right, there's a label for the valve chamber in the plan view. It's not necessary you put it in the legend, right? So if it's labeled here because there's only one or two of them, you don't need to put it in the legend, right? But we have so many of these, I would put it in the legend. And a single one, I would put it in the legend. And the maintenance holes, you know, I would include those in maybe a single double catch basin, and that's about it, right? And if you put in the overland flow, which I didn't ask you to, I would put it on there, right? So if it's on the plan, but there's no label or explanation of what it is, then you put it in the legend. If you look at the grading plan, let's go to one of the grading plans. If I have it here,
I didn't do anything yet.
where do I have it here? So this is on my desktop. Sorry, let me look at my MAD files. If we look at a grading plan, oops. So the legend here, again, you know, you might want to show what an existing or a proposed elevation looks like. So when you see it, you know which is which. If you're going to label the contour label, I'm not a fan of that in the legend because it's obvious on your grading plan, right? That's a legend for the contour. Again, the overland flow. Certainly, I would put in this. Okay, and even if you don't have any walkouts, I would still put it in the legend as a kind of a typical thing, even though you don't have any in your drawing. So you should have a front split walkout or lookout. The lookout, that's the term they use for a back split. So on your site, they're almost all splits. They're almost all splits, and there might be a few lookouts. Remember in that corner, 5, 6. And again, I wouldn't do all of this, right? Just a few simple things, right? The elevations, the lot type grading, overland flow if you include it, otherwise not a big deal, and then just, you know, a sample of each maintenance hole, sand and storm, okay? And then the catch basin. So very, very simple, something. In case it doesn't happen without doing the whole design again, is it possible to shorten the distance? In the case that it does happen without doing the whole design again, is it possible to shorten the distance from the property line? Wei, I'm not sure what you mean by that. It's got to be in color, Warren. I see your give it to me in color. But if you're going to do this for a portfolio, I would print it in black and white, monochrome. For me, I want it in color. It's easier to read. For the sanitary connection pipe. Okay, so that it does happen without doing the whole design. Is it possible to shorten the distance from the property line for the sanitary connection pipe? Are you talking about this, to shorten this, like this? Wei, is that what you mean? We offset 4 meters. Oh, you're talking about how you get from here to here. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 4 meters. 4 meters is typical, right? So I actually have this one wrong. It should be labeled, right? So if you offset 4 meters under the driveway, that's really where my service connection should be, right? This is really where it should be. So if you draw it in the same spot all the time, then you don't need to put in a dimension, right? But if you change it, and there are exceptions, like if you look at Chukmak, if it's, see, it says typical, like this is for the water service, right? So if there's no label here, so I know it's 4 meters because this one's labeled typical. But if it's different for whatever reason, and I think there's an example of a different one here. If I remember right here. Yeah, see here? See this water service? Instead of 8 meters, which is typical, remember 8 meters is typical for the water service? This one is labeled exactly 7.5, so that one's not typical. So the location of that water service is actually 7.5. All the other ones, because there's no dimension, I know it's 8 meters because this one's labeled typical. So that's why you label one typical. Then if there's no other labels, everything you see is the same, 8 meters. If it's different, then you have to identify that one that's different. Does that answer your question, Wayne? Okay. The requirements say the specified house grade in the side yard and rear yard gradients not required for the submission. It means we don't need to show these other. That's right. Don't need to show it. So in that one, what we're talking about is this, right? This bubble is the specified house grade. I don't need to see it. And the slopes. So you see here it says 2%, 2%. I don't need to see that on the drawing. It's a requirement, but I'm not going to waste your time. So these are the specified house grades. Don't do that. And the actual slope along the side yards, I don't need to see that either. Okay, if you look at the other grading plan that shows Ledger Way, let's look at that one. This one here. So if we look here, you'll see same thing, right? So this is the specified. So for a lookout, there's actually two specified house grades. There's the one at the front and there's the one at the back of the building. I don't need this and I don't need this. And you'll see here labeled 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%, all of that I don't need. All I want to see is the four corners proposed and then anything you did in between. So the high point, and if there's an elevation at the back, this is a lookout, right? So you can see 2% up to the front of the building, 2% up from the back of the building, and then a high-low command, 2% down, 3 to 1 up. And this is your typical lookout. Okay, whoops. Any other questions? Hope I didn't miss any. Are we going to plot? Yeah, so again, Warren, for me, I want them in black and white. But if you're going to use these as a portfolio, you want them for me in color. For me in color, like everything else that you did in CDA. But if you're going to use it as a portfolio, print them again in monochrome. Right, just like these, right? These are black and white. This is typical. This is what an engineering drawing looks like. I want mine in color because it's just easier to read for marking. I'm just being selfish there. Any other questions? Should the swale elevations be left in green? So you're talking about down here, these ones? Yeah, I'll be able to read those. That should be okay. What you want to avoid is yellow, right? Or these can be red as well, right? Once you go to the plan and profile, sorry, not the plan and profile, the grading plan, in here, you can't use yellow. So I would use everything red. So any point elevation, I would make them all red so that they all look the same. So all proposed are red and all existing is, I would make all the existing ones on the perimeter gray or something different, right? So you can distinguish between the two, right? Plus the not only the color, but even the size, right? So if you look at the legend on the grading plan, right, you'll notice here, existing is much bigger than, existing is bigger. I usually like to make it smaller. So if this is 2 millimeters, I like to make this 75% or 1.5. So to tidy it up, again, I would look at the points. So I'm gonna do this in model space. I'm gonna take all these layers, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, all of these layers, and all of the proposed or existing layers, right? And I would make them all red. I would make these all red. So they all look the same, even though they're on different layers, right? And then for the existing ones, these ones, for these ones, I would put them on a gray layer, color 8. And then again, for style, for the sake of style, because this is existing, you can do this in Prospector under point groups, update. You can change the style. So whatever this style is, FG, you'll see here the point, not the point, the elevation. So the elevation has a height of 2 millimeters. So then the existing ground should have a height of, the point of it should have a height of 1.5 or 75% of 2, a little bit smaller. And say, okay, okay. And if they don't react, it's because
Just waiting for you to tell me who to put
they're
it.
set here to elevation. So I have to change this to default, which is to say by group. And then you'll see it looks a little different. Now, if it doesn't, again, you have to play with the style. What I typically do is I take this one. So whatever this style is, I make a copy of it, right? Change the name. I'm going to call it existing elevation. So now they're exactly the same, except I'm going to change the height, 1.5, right? And then say OK. And then I'll apply that to the existing. Oops, not the point, the existing elevation. So now they're the same, but 75%, right? So if you compare these, right, the existing is 75% of the design. This is 2 millimeters high. This should be 1.5 millimeters. And if it's not, select similar, it's because, whoops, these ones here. Isolate this layer. If it's not smaller, it's because I hard-coded the style should be default. Right? The word default is the same as by group. What group member am I? What group am I a member of? And that's the style I should take on. Right? So really, there's only 2 types of points: existing or proposed. Even though the proposed are on many different layers. Right? But they all look the same. They have the same layer color and they have the same style because they're all part of this. So there's only 2 types of points. You're either proposed or existing. If you're proposed, however, you have, and like you can see, I have a layer for the front, a layer for the lot grading, a layer for the proposed perimeter, a layer for the swale, and so on. Okay, so these are not required. These slope arrows, I don't need to see those. Yeah, so this you don't need to see, no arrows. Yeah. And again, for the grading plan, I didn't do it, rotate everything, right? Make it look good, right? If you go back to world coordinates, you can go here, right? Rotate this and make it parallel to the lot line, right? That's how it should look. If you lift this, you can copy the rotation angle, copy. Most of these lines are parallel. So I'm just going to grab this, right? So all of these inside here, change, and then go into here and put in a rotation angle for the label. So make this all the same and make these all the same. I think I taught you this trick last semester. Oops, and what I want to change. These should all rotate.
So we don't need to go to any more of the touch point meetings then. He just sent one.
There you go. You can only do that if they're parallel, right? If the lot lines are all parallel. And then again, you got to check. Now see this conflict, right? This is in conflict with this label and this pipe. Yes and no. In the plan view in model space, they're in conflict, but you would never see an elevation where you see the pipe and the pipe label and vice versa. So this conflict, you won't see it. If you go to the plan and profile, you don't see the elevation because it's a grading item. And if you go to the grading plan, you won't see anything underground. So really, because of what you're showing in each view, a grading point is not going to be in conflict with something that's underground because they're not both shown at the same time, right? So you don't have to waste your time with that if you understand that before you start. Otherwise, you're going to start cleaning it up, right? You're going to go back to model space and say, well, there's a conflict here. You know what? I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over here. Right? And if you don't want to see the arrow, again, go back to the group and you go to the edit style. Whoops. go to the elevation point group style and change this to drag state, turn off the leader. Do we need to show the invert elevations of the ROCB lead on the plan? You need to show, yeah, you need to show the plan. So yes, you want to show this information. So what's the top, what's the invert everywhere? But you don't need to show the one here. The one at the road shows up in the profile. So the plan view has the elevation of the invert of the pipe at this end, and then the profile shows the invert of the pipe at this end. So the plan for the high one and the profile for the low one. Yeah, so if you look at the drawing, Chuchmak again, right? Look at this one here. This elevation is shown. All this information is in the plan view, nothing here. So I have the elevation of the pipe at this end. At this end, you have to go to the profile, which would be this one right here. So all the information to build that pipe is on the drawing. The backyard is in the plan, and the one in the road is on the profile. Okay. And at this stage, because it's the drawing, it's the presentation, if there's a blatant problem with your design, I would address it. But if it's a minor thing, I don't waste too much time on the design. Make it look good. Make sure everything's rotated. There's no conflict with the text. Everything that needs to be there is showing. Make the drawing look good. Because again, for a portfolio, at a glance, you can tell whether your drawing looks good. You won't have the time to really get into the details of whether the design has any issues with it. Okay, unless there's something really wrong, like you forgot to turn on a layer, right? Hey, there's no water main, or how come there's no sewers showing in the profile? Oh, it's a grading plan, but there's no points, stuff like that. So if missing information and so on, that's obvious. But at this point, all you're looking to do is make it look good, right? So make sure that it looks. And again, as a guide, if your plan profile at a glance looks something like this, it's good. And if your grading plan if your grading plan looks something like what you see here and here for townhouses, then it's going to be okay. Use this as a guide, right? But again, in color for me. Did I miss anything? No, I don't think so. Any other questions? Any questions about the cost estimate or anything with the spreadsheet? Any of the techniques you want to review? So I'll remain here until at least 3:30, another hour or so. And if you have any questions or you have specific problems with your drawing or drafting or something you want to help with, and just let me know. And if you want, we can actually, if you don't want to do it in class, we can have a separate meeting. If you want to request a separate meeting, I can do that as well. Okay, so that's it for today, unless there's other questions. Take the time to finish this, and hopefully that'll give you a head start on all your other courses, right? You'll be done with this course today, and then you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to tidy up any other coursework you have to do. And I'm guessing all of you, if not most of you, are finishing your time here at Seneca, right? So you should be happy to get done, and should be looking for work, hopefully. I don't know how difficult it's going to be to find jobs this time of year with COVID, but do your best. There's still a lot of work. There's a lot of construction going on. So certainly contractors are working, especially in the municipal sector. Infrastructure is always busy. And then supporting that is also private sector consultants. And if they're working, then even the public sector, the people that review drawings and give permits for construction, they're also busy. So there's a lot of work right now. Obviously, COVID has slowed things a little bit or made it different than what it would have been in other years. But I don't think there's a shortage of work if you're ready. I would certainly look at those areas. Municipalities, private consulting firms, and contractors. Those are probably your go-to places to get to start. Okay, so that's it for today. Like I said, I'll stick around for a while yet, but if there's no other questions, go to work, finish off if you're not done. You're welcome. I'm just looking at here, I know that quite a few of you, I think, have already submitted. So let me just check here. There's 40 students in this class, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 students already submitted. I'm assuming they're done and they're concentrating on their other courses. So expect you to do the same. All right. Good luck, everybody. And like I said, I'll be around for the next couple hours. You're welcome. Okay. I'm gonna end the session, and if you want to speak to me, just I'll be around. Send me an email, and I'll create a private meeting. We can meet privately. You're welcome. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you. Good luck with your job hunting. Thank you, team. Thank you, everybody.